Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Zulfikar, and this presentation will be my first task about history of tourism, and I will cover the land of Sumeria or Sumer. So, first of all, Sumer is the earliest known civilization in the historical region of southern Mesopotamia, or now it's called southern Iraq, emerging during the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Ages between the 6th and 5th millennium BC. It is also one of the first civilizations in the world, along with ancient Egypt, the Kara civilization, and the Indus Valley civilization, the Minoan civilization, and ancient China, living along the valleys of the Tigris and Euphrates. Some Sumerian farmers grew an abundance of grain and other crops, the surplus from which enabled them to form urban settlements. Proto-writing dates back before 3000 BC. The earliest texts come from the cities of Uruk and Jemdet Nasr and date to between 3500 and 3000 BC. Now let's dive into the first point, which is origins. Origins. Most historians have suggested that Sumer or Summer was first permanently settled between 5500 and 4000 BC by a West Asian people who spoke the Sumerian language, a non-Semitic and non-Indo-European agglutinative language isolate. In contrast to its Semitic neighbors, it was not an inflected language. Others have suggested that the Sumerians were a North African people who migrated from the Green Sahara into the Middle East and were responsible for the spread of farming in the Middle East. However, with evidence strongly suggesting the first farmers originated from the Fertile Crescent, this suggestion is often discarded. Although not specifically discussing Sumerians, Lazaridis have suggested a partial North African origin for some pre-Semitic cultures of the Middle East, particularly Natufians, after testing the genomes of Natufian and pre-Pottery Neolithic culture bearers. Next one is history. The Sumerian city-states rose to power during the prehistoric Ubaid and Uruk periods. Sumerian written history reaches back to the 27th century BC and before, but the historical record remains obscure until the early dynastic III period, when a now deciphered syllabary writing system was developed which has allowed archaeologists to read contemporary records and inscriptions. The Akkadian Empire was the first state that successfully united larger parts of Mesopotamia in the 23rd century BC. After the Gutian period, the Third Kingdom similarly united parts of northern and southern Mesopotamia. It ended in the phase of Amorite incursions at the beginning of the second millennium BC. The Amorite dynasty of Isin persisted until 1700 BC, when Mesopotamia was united under Babylonian rule. The Sumerians were eventually absorbed into the Akkadian or Assyro-Babylonian population. Next is the culture. There is considerable evidence concerning Sumerian music. Lyres and flutes were played, among the best known examples being the lyres of Ur inscriptions describing the reforms of King Urukagina of Lagash, say that he abolished the former custom of polyandry in his country, prescribing that a woman who took multiple husbands be stoned with rocks upon which her crime had been written. And the last one is architecture, mathematics, and etc. So, in this part, the Tigris, first of all, the architecture. The Tigris Euphrates plain lacked minerals and trees. Sumerian structures were made of plano-convex mud brick, not fixed with mortar or cement. Mud brick buildings eventually deteriorate, so they were periodically destroyed, leveled, and rebuilt on the same spot. This constant rebuilding gradually raised the level of cities, which thus came to be elevated above the surrounding plain. The resultant hills, known as dells, are found throughout the ancient Near East. According to Archibald Sayce, the primitive pictograms of the early Sumerian era suggest that stone was scarce but was already cut into blocks and seals. Brick was the ordinary building materials, and with its cities, forts, and temples and houses were constructed. The city was provided with towers and stood on an artificial platform. The house also had a tower-like appearance. It was provided with a door which turned on a hinge and could be opened with a sort of key. The city gate was on a larger scale and seems to have been double. The foundation stones, or rather bricks, of a house were consecrated by certain objects that were deposited under them. And the next one is mathematics. So the Sumerians developed a complex system of metrology for the 100 BC. This advanced metrology resulted in the creation of arithmetic, geometry, and algebra. From 2600 BC onwards, the Sumerians wrote multiplication tables on clay tablets and dealt with geometrical exercises and division problems. The earliest traces of the Babylonian numerals also date back to this period. The period 2700 until 2300 BC saw the first appearance of the abacus, and a table of successive columns which delimited the successive orders of magnitude of their sexagesimal number system. I think that is enough from me. Thank you for watching, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.